It's Mornings with Al Farabee on CFAX 1070.
Well, I want to introduce my guest first of all. This is Marcel Lauzière, who is with Imagine Canada. Marcel, welcome to CFAX 1070. How are you?
Good. Thanks for inviting me.
Good, good. We're going to get into the focus of charities and the business of charities, but let's just explain a little bit about your company and what you do essentially. Who is Imagine Canada?
Imagine Canada is a national umbrella for charities and nonprofits working across the country in fields as diverse as arts and environment, social services, international development, health, education, sports. And our role essentially is to be a strong voice for charitable and nonprofit organizations, talk to Canadians about the role and the contributions of what we do. We bring people together also so that they can learn from each other. This is, as you know, a huge country, and we have 85,000 charities out across the country. And finally, our role is to try to create an environment where it makes it easier for organizations to do the work so that they better support Canadians and communities.
So you would have been following and would have had some thoughts on this story that came up this week involving the Canadian Cancer Society, where basically the story says that the donations going directly to research has been less and less over the years. Give me your take on that.
Okay, what I can do certainly is respond more generally, because
sure,
on individual cases unless you have all the information. But health charities are, key charities across the country. They make a huge difference, of course, and what we know and understand about health issues, whether it be Cancer Society or Heart and Stroke or MS Society or Kidney, etc. And a lot of what they do, of course, is they do fundraising and they get donations into their organization so that they can do research, but not only research, they also offer support to families, do prevention work, education, etc. And certainly if one thing research has shown us over the years is that spending money on prevention is absolutely key. So these are organizations that are across the country. The numbers coming out on these, it's important that people look at those numbers, but at the same time, numbers will never tell you the whole story about the impact and the effectiveness of those organizations. In fact, never looked at a balance sheet that has told me anything about impact of an organization. So what we tell Canadians generally is, before you give and before you volunteer, before you support a particular organization, look at the information, go to their website, talk to them and see if you're comfortable with the work that they're doing, if you feel they're having real results, if they're making a difference in the lives of Canadians, then that's probably an organization you want to support or give to. If you're not convinced of that, then move on. There are many other organizations that will gladly work with you and look for your support.
What about the stories of, and this is getting into the business of charity work, because maybe that's something that people don't understand. It is, in fact, and you can confirm this, it's a competitive business not only in this country, but on a global scale, isn't it?
It is. It is very competitive. Charities in Canada are dealing with some of the most difficult, intractable health, social, educational, environmental, cultural issues this country is facing, in fact. And for that, they have to be able to raise the dollars to be able to do their work, particularly at times when many governments are actually getting out of the field in many areas and where we're seeing funding decreases. So it is very difficult. There are a lot of important causes out there, and fundraising is an expensive proposition, but that's all right as long as dollars are coming in to allow those organizations to fulfill their missions to the fullest. So that's really important to know. But to raise a dollar, you have to spend a dollar. There's no doubt about that.
True enough, yes. What about the issue, because obviously this comes up about those that work for charities, and we see the stories that some people that do, their salaries run into like 6 figures, for example. Is this an issue of trying to attract the best possible people and pay them essentially what they're worth, or is it getting a little out of whack as far as salaries are concerned?
Well, I think to give you a bit of context, of the 85,000 charities across the country, many of them, the majority, are very small organizations working at a community, neighborhood level, and they're making a huge difference in the quality of life of Canadians from coast to coast to coast. So they are the core of what the charitable sector is all about. But at the same time, at the other end, there are very big organizations, and often Canadians don't realize, hospitals. Every hospital in Canada is a charity. Every university is a charity. Every major, cultural institution, our museums, our symphony orchestras, etc., our international development organizations. Those are huge, complex, multi-million-dollar organizations that, to run them, you need to bring in extraordinarily highly qualified and highly skilled people that will require much higher salaries. There's no doubt about that. It's not the salaries you would see in Canadian corporations, nor should they be, but they are high salaries. Organizations are often competing, whether they're hospitals or universities or cultural institutions, competing not only nationally but internationally to bring in the talent. So they are paying, I think, salaries that Canadians. I think this is a really good. It's really important that we talk about this because people don't realize it, and they should. And in good part, charities have probably not been as transparent as they should have been over the years, and that's really changing. There's a strong sense within the charitable sector that we need to be talking to Canadians much more effectively. We need to be providing much more information. We have been very supportive of what the Canada Revenue Agency has started to do only 2 years ago, where they are actually identifying through bands levels of compensation. That's really important. Imagine Canada will be launching a new web portal in the fall, which is going to make it a lot easier for Canadians to look at the 85,000 charities out there and get access to really good information about what they're doing, the work they're doing, the numbers that that they report back on an annual basis, etc. So that's changing, and I think that's a really good thing. But there is a reality. I mean, these organizations are dealing with some really, really big, complex issues, and they need to attract people that they can actually pay and pay salaries at that level.
Marcel,
I think is transparency.
Sure. A final question for you. For our audience right now, what is the best advice you would give them? Because here's the question we get all the time for charities is, where is my money going? What's the best advice you would give to somebody as they look from charity to give?
Well, we have, and you can find that on the Imagine Canada website, something we call the Guide to Giving, which is something we produced only a few months ago to help Canadians ask the right questions. So we always say, there's no one number that's going to tell you if that's the organization you want to support, administrative costs or fundraising. That's not going to tell you much. You need to look at those numbers, but you also need to ask a number of questions about the results the organization is having, what are they actually doing on the ground, how are they reporting back, and individuals have to look at that, ask those questions, and decide at the end of the day by themselves if this is an organization they want to support. But there are a number of questions there I think that people would find very helpful.
And the website again is, Marcel? What is it?
It's imaginecanada.ca.
Please check it out. Marcel Lauzière from Imagine Canada. I appreciate your advice and information. Thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you.
Absolutely. 8:28 here at CFAX 1070. It's our news to 8.